Okay, we have a lot of things to tackle this spring. We have 5 tests still to go. So that means we flip the school 5 more times. So this morning we're going to go through our STAAR procedural training for the spring. It will encompass 5 days, and we'll discuss some of that. I'm going to try to go through quickly, but remember that, you know, the details are important. Make sure to go through the training materials. Mr. Hoya and Mr. Naharo are joining me live this morning, so they will not have to go onto YouTube and make sure that they comment to prove that you watched the video. So I know that that sometimes flips people's mind and they think that they can just do one or the other. You need to read the materials, you need to watch the video, ask the questions, submit the form, and let's just move forward. If it will let me. Okay, training never takes the place of reading the manual. The manual was released to all of us. We did securities training in the fall. We went through the manual. I have plenty of paper copies down here. If you would like your own book, please email Mrs. Gary. Estella will make sure that we get a book to you so that you can thumb through, read. It is a different manual than in the past. It looks similar on the outside, but the makeup of it is different. All right, this is the testing overview. Notice there are 5 days spread out here. I want to talk really quick. We are doing Algebra 1 on Tuesday, May 9th. The 6 high schools are kind of split. Some people are doing Algebra 1 on May 10th. Some are doing it on May 9th. We are doing it on May 9th. It provides for the least conflicts for our students. And so that is what we are doing. So our first ones come up 2 weeks from yesterday. By this time in 2 weeks, we will be, hopefully all materials will be checked out. Everybody will be getting ready in their rooms, being prepared for kids. Notice this chart will help so much because it tells you what the AP conflicts are that day. When we're doing the makeup test, we are not alternating AB days from the AB calendar. We are going with what is there for the district. So this provides a lot of information for you. All right, I just want to start out with tips to prevent irregularities. Okay, we don't want us to have something cuckoo go on in the room, but there's sometimes things happen, even in the best of prevention, there's still things that occur, but we want to minimize that if at all possible. So if you'll just make sure to adhere to the information on your roster and make sure to provide documented accommodations, that's really, really, really important. Then also I want to say on here, if a student asks about an accommodation that it doesn't show up on your accommodations page, contact the testing office. We've taught our kids to advocate for themselves. Mistakes happen. It won't be because that was our intention, but if a student had a recent ART or 504 or something was discussed in LPAC, we're not aware of it. If it's an allowable accommodation and it is documented, they are entitled to it. It's the law. We need to make sure to follow that. And we need to do that before you begin the test, because let's say a student should have, they know they should have text to speech, but the opportunity on the test, like when you go in, you can adjust your headphones. If there's not even an option to adjust headphone levels for that student and they should have text to speech, we've got a problem. We need to make sure that things are enabled correctly. Make sure your seating charts are created accurately. We had a couple of instances, less than 5, but more than 0, where people did not complete their seating charts. Your seating chart is part of your checklist. If you will just go by your checklist, you will not miss a single thing as to what we need documented and taken care of, and you'll just feel more comfortable and on the same page, and you'll be following exactly what we need to do in the guidelines. Document the information requested, whether it's attendance, start time, time submitted, the number of people still testing. Make sure those things are provided in the appropriate places. No, it is not a timed test this year, but we still have things that we have to document and make sure that we've provided for. Make sure that you're giving the correct test materials to the correct students and providing what they need. Verify that each student has recorded their responses on their online test before submitting. That right there. We are encouraging students, when you get in your manual and it says, you know, that when they can submit their test, just insert before you submit your test. When you're ready to submit your test, raise your hand. It's not a complicated process, but we need to see that they submitted. We need to see that they've answered their questions. We're not going to look at the questions, but the grid will let you know if they have anything. It looks kind of like a little orange cone will appear, or an orange triangle that will say that that question's not answered or it needs to be revisited. So we need to make sure and account for that. That's, you know, just things that we need to do. Also, if they happen to submit before you can guide them through it, then have them sign in again. The test will not allow a student to sign in if they've truly submitted. So that's kind of our fail safe. If it doesn't allow them in, then they did submit correctly. Make sure you're actively monitoring. There will be testing rooms, there will be non-testing rooms. Let me just go ahead and say this. In a testing room, you're actively monitoring, you're knowing what is going on in your room. But you know what? In a non-testing room, you should be actively monitoring your kids. Kids should not just, no one gets free reign that day. We need to know what's going on in our rooms. We need to manage it. We need to make sure that as best we can, students are actively engaged in the proper things for that day. Make sure that you're accounting for all your test materials. Verify the student's identity with their test ticket before the test begins. We don't want anyone taking someone else's test. So when your tickets are on the desk, they have the chance there to make sure that's their name, their birthday, and everything is as it should be. And again, check online tests for completion before students submit. Again, I understand if a student submits before you can get back there, make them sign in again just to verify that it really did go through. All right, here's some more important information. Go ahead and start making sure your room is test ready. Everyone, that means every single room on this campus. Everybody needs to do some spring cleaning right now. Won't hurt you. We have 5 days coming up that happen to have STAAR EOCs. You never know when we have to move to a different room. We've had several instances over the years. There was a couple where we had to move a whole hallway because of an air issue. We've had to move from one room to another. So odds are, if you're assigned to a room and the room next to you is being used, well, we're not just going to swap someone, but that means that if a room happens to be empty and not utilized, we could need it. You just don't know what could happen. So make sure your room is ready to go. That means desks need to be facing the same direction. It needs to be easy to move through there to actively monitor. Kids don't need to be on top of each other. We don't need to invite an environment for cheating. So spread them out, face in the same direction, make sure somebody can monitor through. And then here's the big thing, make sure that anything could help or hinder a student on an English 1, English 2, Biology, US, or Algebra 1 STAAR test is covered or removed from walls and halls and classrooms. That's not or classrooms, it really should be and, so that will probably find its way to a correction pretty quick as I make note of it. All right, make sure rooms are ready before you leave Friday, April 20th. That means on the 24th, room checks are going to start. We got a lot of rooms to go through, and we need to be able to have the accessibility to them at any given time in the day. We all know things come up. We may have to pause ourselves. We may have to start a little later. We may get to start early. Regardless, when you leave Friday, April 20th, make sure the room's ready so that when we're ready to check anytime on the 24th, we can. Guys, every time there's been an instance where someone says, well, I have this assignment. Well, I have this group project. Well, I have this going on in my room. And I have to be able to say, I'm sorry. We asked you to have them ready by Friday, April 20th. So make sure that everything is in place. I can't take somebody's promise of, it'll be good by the time I leave. I have to have it ready to go by the time you leave Friday, April 20th. So room checks can begin Monday, April 24th. That also allows me the liberty, if I wanted to give up my weekend and check them by myself over the weekend, I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but I would have that possibility. All right, always communicate with your students where they should go. The link will be sent out on the dates as noted below. It's also going to be sent out to parents through Skyward. This is where you're going to find out your staff assignment for each week, for the following week, as well as student assignments. So I'm not going to release, it's just not really humanly possible to do this, but also it gets very confusing. If we release where everybody was going on all 5 flip days at one time, it's called mass chaos. So week 1, so next Wednesday, a week from today, I will release the staff assignments and student assignments for English 1 and English 2. Start communicating with your kids. Revisit that. Make sure your assignment doesn't change. I will do my best. If I put something in there and I know you've had a chance to see it and I need to change it, I will email you and I'll put a read receipt on it just to confirm that we're all on the same page. So for the next week, I will wait to release those till the 27th. And if you're following me, that's because we don't want it to get confusing at all. I need to wait till those English days are over to release the next week's assignments, staff and students. And then for Tuesday, the 9th of May, for that algebra day, I'll release it on Thursday, May 3rd. All right, so students will be in their assigned room until an announcement is made to resume schedule. This is totally different and totally determined by when we can move kids. We don't have a time limit, really. Kids can have as long as they need to take this test. The state says that we should be able to possibly move back to regular schedule in a day. But STAAR's been redesigned. We really don't know what is going to happen. My gut says that on the English days, we will likely stay where we are. Those tend to take longer. They're more involved tests or have been in the past. But again, we don't know till we get in there. So it's very important, it's vitally important that you stay up on Remind. If you haven't signed up for Remind, I'll make sure to add that slide in towards the end. I don't think I have it in this slideshow, but I will. It will be added in there by the time things are released to everyone. We've all got to be on the same page. The biggest thing on days like this is communication. If we've communicated with our students where to go, and if we have been professionals and stayed up on all communication that's come through this office and anybody with authority over testing that can deliver that information, then we're going to be doing fine. We just have to execute what the plan is and do a good job. Okay, please notice right here, we're not going to give students passes to leave your room other than going to the restroom or clinic. So everyone should be in their assigned room as designated for that day. We've had some situations, whether it's non-testing or a student that finishes testing, everybody stays put. It's kind of like a hold for that day without like something being wrong. We're testing, so everybody stays where they need to be. All right, more information. Sorry, y'all, there's just a lot of bones to get to. Students with early release on their regular schedule will be released whenever we make the announcement to go to last period. Or if we happen, I'm just going to say this, and it's in writing later on, let's say on the English days, we never move and we stay in there all day long. If a student has early release on their schedule, they will have to sign into Skyward and show their non-testing room teacher that they have that before they can leave that room. And then they have to be told to immediately get off campus. I don't know, again, I don't know when we're going to release. Hopefully it will all just work out, but we have to plan for what if in case it doesn't. Note that the CTE buses are not going to run on these days. Remember at the beginning when I said half of the high schools are given Algebra 1 on the 9th, half are given it on the 10th as to what's best for their campus? Those CTE buses will not be running Tuesday, Wednesday, April 25th, 26th, May 2nd, 3rd, or May 9th and 10th. And so if a student has an out class, a CTE class that is off campus on their schedule, then they will go to the auditorium. Students need to bring their Chromebooks charged, and they need to be ready to work. They also need to bring their chargers. These are some things to communicate, get in their little brains right now. Where you're going, Get your Chromebook, get your charger, be here every day. Test is online. Remember, you're going to hold their electronic devices until you're given the all clear by the testing office. That typically is once you bring your materials in and where you've been signed off on. But you just make sure and check with us. It's okay to give them back now, right? We don't want that to become a hindrance to the test at all, and we don't want to be in violation of security. Okay, non-testing students, you're going to work in Google. They're going to work in Google Classrooms on assignments posted by their current teachers. So everyone is responsible to make sure your Google Classroom is current, whether they're working on a pending assignment or they're recovering some learning, or maybe they're tutoring for an upcoming EOC in a non-testing room. Kids will be engaged. Make sure those Google Classrooms are up to date for your current students. Water's only, drink aloud. Just know that I said that and put that out there. We don't need some red Kool-Aid coming in somebody's drink that's spilled. It's all the mess. Water's the only thing we're going to allow kids to have in the rooms. If they have something else, it's just going to have to stay in their backpack. Lunches are going to be silent. We're still kind of threshing out what that's going to look like if we are still in test mode at that time. Students need to be in school dress, and staff needs to, again, make sure their Google Classrooms are up to date. Attendance, notice there is a link right here. This link is the shared folder where I will drop everything you need. I'm not going to release those until those dates that we saw on like that first or second in those first couple of slides, because it gets confusing. So when the first one that'll be up there, it'll be for the English 1 and 2 days. So it'll have an FAQ page. It will have the lunch page. These are all tabs on that worksheet. It'll have attendance for the 25th, attendance for the 26th. And you'll have the rights to go in and take the attendance in those cells as well as make notes. Okay, so make sure, we've been doing this for a while and we've already done it twice this school year. Everyone takes attendance and makes sure that it is correct at 10 o'clock. So if you take it initially, awesome. You're typing in absent if that student is not physically present in your room and accounted for. And if they're there, you just highlight it, this little, that little cell, yellow. Highlight equals here. Okay, also down here, I made a little note. Testing administrators only be on the computer to glance at remind or on your phones. We're going to try to make sure that communication, if we haven't set it by 10:15 at the latest, then look again at noon, look again at 1:30. If it's something that's more emergent that needs to come in before that, we will use your assist in the hallway and our overseers to also help communicate that. Okay, staff assignments. Here's when they're going to be released. It goes in line with the things that we talked about in those first few slides, the same way we will release the student assignment, and it will be in that shared folder. Remember to be flexible. If you have a conflict, limitation, or question, I really should already know about it. I sent an email out a couple of weeks ago letting you know, hey, again, I need to know. These are blackout days. I need to know. And people have been pretty good and diligent to do that. If there's anything vitally important for me, I need to know today. I'm well into this and I can't just flip the deck and start over. Please know that conferences don't really exist on these days. They just don't. And I apologize. We all have days like this and they are just muddy and they're going to flesh out. They're going to work because we're going to work together as a team. Make your plans now to bring your lunch for these 5 testing days. There's no time to leave campus. If you're an assist or a restroom person, in those instances where you are not locked down in your room, basically giving your test and actively monitoring in the room, you are going to have to rotate around with people to make that work, or eat at your station, because we've got to have somebody in those duties at all times. It's not one of those things where you can go, I'm going to be gone for 30 minutes and you got this. We just can't afford that luxury. We've got to be able to be here for our kids and take care of each other. And this is a day to be selfless. If that's not been your thing, then please take that up that day. Here's the possible duties that are included on those days. It's not limited to that. And notice those asterisks at the bottom. Some paras as well as SPED staff, they're going to be carrying out their everyday staffing activities. But just know everybody's basically on call. No stone unturned. If we need somebody, we will call. And if you know you get that call and that's not normally you, then it is an emergency to take you out of your normal thing to say, hey, we need you to do this. Can you please come pinch hit? And of course you will. You've all been trained in security. All staff assignments are for the duration of STAAR testing. Until it's communicated that we're going back to regular schedule, please don't leave your post. Please do not leave your post. Notice that next sentence says, don't leave your post until directed to go to 4A8B. Really, don't leave your post until we go to regular schedule. Could be early, could be late. It could be that we're there all day. If we're there all day and I look down a hall and there's not a soul there, then something's wrong. Because if we're all on duty until we go to regular schedule, then we all need to be at our assigned spot. Okay, walk through the manual. Highly encourage that you go through this manual again. Test security. Remind yourselves what the things are that we are doing to make things secure in these rooms and the things that you do and don't do. I mean, yeah, there are consequences, but let's just make sure that we're in alignment with the rules and putting in place the things that are there. Accessibility features, those are things that anybody can have, but I still have to know about them. We still have to have those documented. Testing accommodations are put in place by LPAC 504, SPED services. So let's make sure those are law. Make sure that they're documented to put in place for a child. We're doing that. And again, remember, if a student says, I really thought I was supposed to have, get in contact with us in the testing office. Let us confirm that students learn to advocate for themselves. Considerations for testing with designated supports. It's just a highlighted thing, like the different environments and the way we set them up. Pretty no-brainer, but it's just good things to flush through and remind yourselves of. Monitoring. Know what's going on in your room. Again, these are topics that we need to look at. Test administration directions. Let me just park right here for a second. When you flip in your manual, if you haven't visited that lately, you're going to remind yourself real quick, oh my goodness, the directions are divided. English and Spanish. We are giving directions in English. Okay, our kids take the test in English, we're giving them in English. However, if a student in your room, you have an awareness of they do not understand English, they understand Spanish, and give it a go. Go ahead and give them their directions in Spanish, or see if your assist can help you out, and so that everybody can start around the same time. That's the goal. Online tools, just talk to you about what those are. Kids in all 5 of these classes have been working on practice tests. So they should be familiar with the ins and outs of these tests. And some of them are still doing those now. It's a great way. If you haven't done that and you're in one of those classes, we talked about it, make sure you are doing that, because kids need to be able to see the format, how we're going in, be familiar with the tools and how to access them. Okay, and then 48 and 49, it's a very weird part of the manual. You've got to look at it. There's some spring direction changes. That's where the state put them. They put them on page 48 and 49. There is I'm flipping to mine right now, and on page 48 and 49 of the manual, it does say for spring and June assessment. So you want to, I don't know if it got that. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But make sure that you're looking at that. All right. Designated supports, just a brief reminder, here are designated supports that are in place on our campus and what that looks like. Remember, there's no extra time accommodation. Everybody, no student is timed, and everyone has till the end of the day. Online supports like text-to-speech, and spelling assistance, content and language supports, those will already be enabled by this office. If it says that it should exist and it doesn't exist, we need to know. Also, notice up there in the top right corner at MHS, There are only supplemental aids for biology and algebra 1 STAAR EOCs. We do not have those for other subjects. There are things I know, especially like for U.S. history, they do something that doesn't require everybody to be under a special umbrella or receive a special kind of accommodation. They basically turned something into accessibility. They have taught students how to fold the paper in a certain way so they can do a brain dump when their test is given. And it's really cool when you see stuff like that all students have access to, has been taught to use, and it's a helpful thing for all of them. But as far as supplemental aids that are kind of put in place, or they definitely are put in place by one of those committees and required to be documented, those only exist for biology and algebra 1. All right, testing irregularities. If it seems something's wrong or out of compliance, immediately call 27815. Whoever answers the phone in here is who you will need to talk to. You do not have to talk to me. They will get the information to me and allow the students to continue testing unless you're otherwise told. If you have a student who can't seem to wake up, first utilize your assist and then your overseer. If you still have problems, call Miss Gary at 15580. She'll radio an administrator and we'll get that taken care of. We cannot allow students just to lay around and sleep. We've got to have them actively on this test. Basically, we can't move until kids finish, but we also want to manage things well. So no sleeping. Okay. All right, testing procedures. Guys, we follow the checklist. I took the checklist and broke it down into different slides. I'm not going to try to read every single aspect of it, but some of it's a little bit different. And Mr. Navarro, Mr. Hoya, I know at some point if y'all have to leave, just pick up at this slide when the training comes across. I hate that it's a little bit more lengthy, but it is because it covers 5 days. So I thank you guys so much. All right, and I just wanted to say that because I know if you have first period, you may need to go soon. Okay, before students arrive, breaking up materials, you're putting up the testing do not disturb sign, you're putting the tickets out so you can direct students to their seat and make sure their seating chart goes with that. And then on the board, you're going to write the word session ID, but you're not going to put the actual ID up there yet because that instruction is later. If you put it up on the board, kids are going to start. So do not put the actual ID on the board. Just write the word session ID so all students will see it at the same time when it is later advised to put it up there, instructed to do so in the checklist. All right, as students arrive, you're making sure their Chromebooks are ready. Make sure they have a Chromebook. Let's say that it's just dead. See if somebody in the room has a charger they can let them use. Find a way, if it doesn't go in line with where you place their little ticket, then move their ticket to closer to a plug. This might be a good day to see if we catch a sale on some extension cords or surge protectors. I've been in your rooms. You people are creative, and we can do this because the extra Chromebooks that we have are super, super limited. And when they're out, and we'll have to move students to a different day of testing, which again will interrupt instruction later that week. So if you've exhausted all possibilities, you've restarted, you've seen if somebody on your assist or your overseer or a computer guru on your hall can make it work and they can't, or a student did not even come with a Chromebook to test, put all their information on the checkouts for testing sheet, and either your assist or if there's 2 people in the room, one of you or an overseer goes and gets the Chromebooks and brings them back. We've got to have all the Chromebooks back that we check out. We can't afford to lose any. I only have 80 assigned to me. We got to have them all back. All right, final preparations before you begin testing. Once the tardy bell is rung, you're still working through your checklist. If a student starts at a different time than the room, remember, use your start-stop sheet. Also, if there's an emergency for some reason, you're not stopping their time. We're just notating and documenting what's going on in the room, and that's just a bigger space to make those notations. Students need to adjust their volumes before they even click on the app. So have everybody if there's headphones in your room, have everybody plug them in. Make sure that they can hear out of them and adjust their volume. If there's no headphones in your room, make sure everybody presses mute on their computer, just so nothing goes wacko. Then you'll read the electronic policy, really encourage our kids. I know that this is on the checklist. I know that it says the same thing every time, but it is vitally important that they know that we've got their back and that we are cheering them on. We don't know what they left their home with that day. We don't know that they got sleep. We don't know what they came to us, whatever burdens they're bearing. But we know that we've got their back. We know that we're going to cheer them on, and we need them to know it. Do not distribute pencils or scratch paper until this moment. You're already going to have their tickets on their desk. They don't need to have a way to write on them until this time. And this is also when you distribute supplemental aids. And then here we go. We're ready to start. You start reading in the manual. You do not notate the session ID until it says, I have given you the session ID. Now we're going to log in. That's when you place it on the board at that moment. Have students begin, record the start time, and we already talked about it. For tracking purposes, if something happens and a student has to be escorted out, let's say they make a really bad choice and leave your room and don't come back, any of those notations, put them on the start-stop sheet, okay? Also, it does say keep in mind, depending on the circumstance, I may give special permission for a student to begin after 10. If we do that, they're going to be escorted to the room, and that's fine. And let's say that kid's one of the few that's still working when we get ready to move, then they'll move to finish testing. But if we get a kid here and we have the possibility of getting a test in, the law, the manual, everything that I know says we've got to start them. But again, if their start time is different, you're going to make sure that you've recorded it. And then the start time for the room goes on the seating chart, attendance, and room logs. And then also on the room log, I think this is later on in this checklist, but I just want to go ahead and highlight it real quick. On your room logs this year, there is a designated time to put how many students are still testing at that time. We've got to do that so that we can kind of account for where we are. After your kids have started and before 10 and at 10, make sure you verified your attendance. Our attendance ladies should not have to call a room, whether you are a testing room or non-testing room, to say we need you to do your attendance. Please take care of everything on time. Let's have professional courtesy. Everybody be on the same page. Testing rooms, you're also taking that attendance on paper. Actively monitor. You know what that means. We've talked about it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Anytime an adult comes in or out of a testing room, just make sure to advise them to sign your room log that's on your door. Keep actively monitoring, keep actively monitoring, keep actively monitoring. And then notice that next bullet says, follow the lunch plan as outlined for your room. The lunch plan is still being fleshed out. It will be released, and remember, it will be a tab on that shared sheet that you'll find in our shared folder. But what I will tell you is this is what you will do. You'll pause the test, not end it, not submit it, pause it, close their Chromebooks. Your room's got to be locked and secured. And then you return, everybody resumes at the same time. See those big, bold letters at the bottom? Be on time. Arriving for lunch at the cafeteria. Don't come late or early. It messes up the schedule, but be on time, arriving for lunch, and picking up your students. It's not just arriving, it's picking them up. I'm going to make that slide change on slide 17 to make sure it says arriving and retrieving and picking up your kids. And then get them back, get them started, and let's go. Remember with submission, we've talked about it about 17 times already, that kids are going to raise their hands, you're going to help them submit. We are saying nothing can be returned to this office before 11:30. All testers should be working at minimum until 11:30. I mean, I'm hoping everybody gets started between 9 and 9:15 at the latest, but we also know kids come in late. You're gonna have, there's a lot of stuff that goes on just to start the test. So 11:30, kids need to read the test. So yeah, it's gonna take at minimum. I'm thinking it's gonna take a lot longer than that, but we'll see. Depends on the test, depends on the makeup, depends on the day. Make sure they've answered their questions, help them submit, record the finish time on the roster. It's all right if you put it on their ticket because like 6 of them finish at once and you just write it real quick on their tickets, you're getting them to submit. but you've got to have it on that roster. We're going to turn around and have you do it before you get in here. Don't be the thing that's holding everybody up from moving to the next, to going on regular schedule because you haven't done your accounting correctly. As students finish collecting materials, make sure you're creating different stacks. Everything has to be accounted for. We're going to already have your tickets for your absent kids. So you need to have your test ticket, scratch paper. If there is a supplemental aid, those all need to go in different stacks. And then this is how you return. I am not going to read this, but if you have not followed the checklist for returning, we won't sign off on you until it's right. So if you have to run back to pick up something because you forgot it, fine. Just do it and come back down. But we're also going to be monitoring the amount of students testing and the materials out. We can't move until everything's accounted for. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of things. Things to make note of and revisit. Staff laptop. This is a change. Red alert, bat phone, everybody pay attention. Take your own laptop to your room. If there is not a laptop in your room, it's because that person followed my directions. You need to be able to use your own. Everybody on this campus, every staff member has been assigned a laptop. You need to be able to use your own in the room you're in. That's the best way. That is the best way to take care of things. Arranging kids, remember to be flexible, make it work with extension cord, surge protectors, however we can make things work. But we need to still be in that seating chart. Just make sure your chart matches. Limited on Chromebooks, try all the solutions first. Make arrangements about your brief lunch. Remember, we're not leaving campus. You've got to arrange it with your testing partner. These are the times we're monitoring about relocating. So make sure we're all on the same page. Remember to hold those electronic devices, phones, smartwatches, whatever, until you're given the all clear. Everybody needs to upload their Google Classroom. Make sure we stay on schedule together. If we don't move by 2:15, remember this is how a kid with an early release gets to be able to go. You don't just get to carte blanche, take their word. They have to prove it in Skyward. CTE buses, it reminds you when they're not running. Revisit the Google Sheet every morning. Confirm that you know where to go. It's going to get confusing. There's 5 of them. You've just got to be on target with the right day. Pickup will begin at 7:30, conclude by 8:10. Please don't come late to school. Always be early on test days. Consider 8 late. If we start programming, that's me too. We all have to consider 8 late. I know that's technically not the time we have to sign in by, but if we consider 8 late, then we're going to be on the same page and be in a great place. If you have an emergency, make sure you contact me. We're almost done. Here's the steps. Here's what you should be doing. What now? Make sure you've completed this process. This is super, super important slide. All right, if you have any questions at all, make sure that you communicate with me. There's my cell phone number, my email, or you can come by 109. If there's something on